Good afternoon and welcome to Hedwig Dances and the salon to discuss the hero's journey that was the making of Trade Winds Aries de Cambio. We have an awesome group of the collaborators and creators behind this incredible collaborative dance work, including Jan Bartoszek, Daniel Culkin, and the original, some of the original cast, Mirai, Jesse, and Victor. Everyone is going to introduce themselves, and I'm going to start off that pattern. I'm Roelle Schmidt. I got to be, luckily, the director of Lynx Hall for 10 years. And during that time, one of the most wonderful parts about Lynx Hall was the fact that it's a member of the National Performance Network, which allows local artists in Chicago through Lynx to be commissioned nationally and internationally. So I was super excited and fortunate to be in a position to recommend Trade Winds to National Performance Network, and it was accepted as a co-commission through the network, which meant more dollars for real art to be made, which was fantastic. So, but before we get into all the words and the video and the still photography from that amazing show, I thought it would be really nice if we got some of Trade Winds into our bodies right away. So if the dancers wouldn't mind leading us through some of the phrases from the actual dance, that would be amazing.
Hello, everybody.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's do this.
Clean this space.
So, the first phrase, the two phrases that we're going to do, sorry, I'm Victor Alexander, one of the original cast from Trade Winds or Aire de Cambios.
And I'm Jessie.
So, the phrase that we're going to do is based on the last section of the piece, that is Rueda de Casino. Right? Rueda de Casino will be like the wheel of salsa. So, here we go.
Pretty slow.
Yes, it will lead.
1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let's try it again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And now we're going into the second phrase. And Mirai will be joining this one.
Hello, my name is Mirai Gutierrez, Artistic Associate of Hedwig Dances, and the cast for Trade Winds Aries de Cambio. Okay. 1, 2. Okay, I don't know if anyone is doing this, but that's why we're doing that slow. Otherwise, we put music on it too. So let's do it. Let's do it again. Okay, so let's do like with some count. 1, 2, 3, heel and fold back. And I take his arms. 6, 7, 8. It's very social. So it's like, as you can see, he's taking the arm, put it on the shoulder. He's going around my arm, and then he fell back into my arms too. I carry him. and then I take his right arm, bring it down, and put it over my head. 2. That's it.
Wonderful. Thank you, dancers. Oh, it feels so lovely to feel like I'm a little bit in a dance studio, even though it's remote. So thank you. What's also really wonderful about showing those two gestural phrases, I think, is they emphasize that this particular dance work is a partnership. not just partner dancing, but partnership between countries, between languages, between cities, between artists. And so, Jan, I'm going to start with you and asking you to take us on the journey, the many years journey, from Tradewind's first initial idea through to its culminating premiere performances in Chicago and in Havana.
So I'm Jan Bartoszek, and I'm the founder and artistic director of Hedwig Dances, and I'd like to thank Roel for moderating today's discussion and for her support along the way as we were creating it. Tradewind's Eres de Cambio was about a 4-year project from the initial idea through the realization and the last performance with DanzAbierta in 2015. So we started thinking about it in the beginning of 2011. And initially, there were 2 reasons. One was personal. I wanted to meet the families of my dancers. I wanted to travel to Cuba and meet the families of the dancers who had been with me for, at that time, about 9 years. And I wanted to see their formation, the training. I wanted to meet the Cuban dance community. And I wanted to see if it would be possible, and this is the artistic motivation, to set up a collaboration with another Cuban dance company and to have performances in the US and in Cuba. So, it was a big dream, and it had to be taken in small steps. So we started by setting up a group tour through a partner organization called Art Encounter in Evanston. They were doing tours to see art in Cuba. And we thought, well, how about if we do a tour to Cuba that's focused on dance? So Mariah and Victor primarily, Jesse as well, we started to plan how we would have a week-long tour and take our patrons with us to see dance. And that during that time, we would meet the Cuban community, dance community, and begin trying to see if this dream would be possible. So it took a while. There was, a lot of discussion going on and trying to figure out who would be the best partner for us in this idea. And we settled on DanzAbierta. Now, I want to just say that DanzAbierta doesn't exist anymore. It's now called Mi Compañía. It has a new name, and it's the same artistic director, but it's her own company. And so there's been some changes in the last 5 years. But in any case, at that time, it was DanzAbierta. And so we began talking to them about this possibility. And so then I have a few pictures I thought might be helpful to see a little bit about our journey. We started to talk to them in January of 2012. And we a commitment on paper. So, and it's difficult to travel to Cuba. So Cuba was too far to go, but DanzAbierta at that time was performing in Quebec. So Mariah, my husband Jeff, and I traveled to Quebec. And it was there that we sort of solidified through a letter of intent that we would actually work together. So this first picture takes place in a small town called Trois-Rivières. It's north and east of Montreal. And anyway, it was quite an adventure traveling up there. And the next photo that we have is of performance that DanzAbierta was doing. This performance was called Showroom, and you can see from the photo that it's very theatrical work that they're doing, and that was one of the reasons why we thought that they would be a really great partner for us, because the work that we do is also very theatrical. It's very collaborative. They use original music. We use original music. Their costumes and sets are also very much a part of what they do. So this was on the stage of that dance festival they were performing in. So following that, the next photo takes us forward in time. In the meantime, Mariah, in between this, before this photo here, Mariah and I traveled again to Cuba, and we started to settle on how we would work together, because we're working, the headwinds were strong. It's not easy to communicate back and forth. You know, it's expensive to travel to Cuba. It's expensive to bring Cubans here. So we have to have a very sound structure for the work. And so we traveled in November of 2012, and we set up a structure for the work, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But then again in 2013, we took another group of patrons with us to Cuba, and this time we started to work a little bit more with them. And in the background of this picture of Mariah and Jesse is the Centro de la Danza in Havana. It's in Old Havana on the Prado, which is one of the main streets in downtown Havana. And then if we go to the next picture, you'll see the dance studio itself where DanzAbierta worked. So if we can move to the next photo, that would be great. In this photo is actually the company doing a class, but you'll see in the background that there's a set. And during this year, Gio Darder from Copper Bridge Foundation, who helped with the tours that when we would take patrons there, offered to bring DanzAbierta to Miami and said to me, Jan, why don't you bring them from Miami to Chicago? And I said, yeah, but how? He said, I'll help you. So that set was one of the things that we had to figure out how to get from actually from Miami to Chicago. But the first time that we performed together was actually, it was the premiere of my work, Ascendance, and they did the work that we saw in Quebec called Showroom. So our two companies performed together at the Athenaeum Theater in Chicago in 2013. And it was just a very exciting time for our company and a way for us to, again, solidify our relationships with DanzAbierta and talk about the work and, you know, plan for what we were going to do. Again, we traveled to Cuba in 2014. This time we had already, you know, we're on our way to start, you know, creating the work. So if we can look at the next photo, we're there beginning to work on the dance in their studio.
That was the first time, Jen, right? That was the very first time that we went and stayed together to start creating
the work. Yes, we started working during our tour, and the tours that we did actually were a way of supporting this project. So the patrons who traveled with us actually helped pay for this collaboration through their a donation as part of the tour.
Yeah, that was the time where Gian and Susana actually start talking about what the idea could be. So they started doing improvisation. Susana was working with our dancers, with Hedwig, and then Gian, I remember that you actually did some exercises, improv, with DanzAbierta as well. And then, you know, we blended together. As you can see, there's people from Hedwig and DanzAbierta, so we kind of like interlocked there. Because I think it was important to show the patrons and the group but also to show ourselves that we actually were able to do this together. So that was the first time that we were together, the first time that we were moving together in the same room, sharing the breath, sharing the heat of the room, the play. So, you know, and also for us as Cuban borns, it was kind of like, you know, a good memory to go back actually to Cuba and dance again. So anyway, it was great.
So the next photo that you're going to see is rehearsal or during our residency at Lynx Hall.
Mm-hmm.
So here we are in Roel's space on Western Avenue. It was right before the premiere at the Dance Center. It was really the time when we worked out all the transitions and we're like completely putting the piece together over 2 weeks, or like less than 2 weeks time. It was pretty exciting and also very intense rehearsal process because a lot had to come together in a short time. But anyway, the two companies are working.
Yeah, and I remember that there we really have 2 weeks, but one for sure, because we need to make sure that in a week we're able to put the whole piece together with them, and then the other week will be on the theater. So, you know, usually you don't go to the theater and start doing on Monday because Monday is tech, so that you pretty much start doing your tech and dress starting from Tuesday. So it was very intense. I involved from Monday to Friday, actually. And I do remember, Jan, that we had to change many of the things that we
make a lot of changes. Yeah.
Changes. Because things didn't work at the last minute. It was, you know, I think it's important to say that because after, you know, you put a lot of effort and all that, you're like, okay, let's make changes. So we knew that for some reason, we knew that it should happen, you know, it's going to happen just because we were actually doing these pieces in a different countries. So they were working in Cuba and we were working here, and there was no time just like this to be able to put this whole piece together. So we didn't know, like, you know, we were from different generations, so we were from different generations. Actually, I didn't know the people from DanzAbierta. As far as Guido, I know him for many years. Susana, I knew her, but I never had the opportunity to talk to her in person. So there was many different layers, interesting at the same time. Never moved with them in body. As you know, we really have to connect emotionally and in body, you know. So that was a really a short amount of time, but at the same time, we all had an experience just to put it together and to say, hey, this is the moment, we should enjoy this, and we make it happen. So I think it's something that a lot of valuable things about this process, and we learn from that. So it's really good.
So from there, I have a picture of the Dance Center of Columbia College, which is, I believe, not this one, but the next photo. That's Susana and Guido at the Dance Center right before the premiere. We were marking out the floor space for the video, I believe. So video has a spill and you have to figure out what your space is within the video. So that's that picture. And then the next one takes us to the National Theater in Havana. Of the two companies together on the stage. In the background, you'll see the division of the space. On the left is Chicago and on the right is Havana. And that was one of the structural things that we did in the work that helped us continue, you know, to work separately, that we could have our part about Chicago and their part about Havana sort of as a call and response for each other based on the idea of the seasons.
Yeah. Did you remember how long, or maybe Daniel can help us, because I do remember that just to put these videos and to adjust these images, you remember that, how long it took? It was amazing, but crazy at the same time, how long it took for this thing to put it together.
Yeah.
Because there were so many challenges. different theaters, different, how do you say, technical medium. So I think it was a challenge there. But, you know, we just was trying to bring the fun. And, you know, all of that was help us. All of this time together was helping us in the piece. Yeah, it was really fun.
So in Havana, we performed in the National Theater, and there were between 2,000 and 3,000 people there. It was packed. I was worried all week because I didn't see any signs around town. I didn't know if anyone was going to come. And lo and behold, you know, it seemed like the world showed up, and it was quite amazing. It was an amazing experience.
Promoting. So, and that I also spent many years without going to Cuba. Like I'm saying artistically, I would say, because we went as family, but I didn't know actually how the things were working. So, but I told Jan, no worries. We're gonna do one big performance there. There's 3,000 people to fill, but don't worry about it. People go. The people who sell on the street, they will go to the performance because I know it happens. People go to see dance, music, and any kind of cultural backgrounds in Havana. So I was completely, I have complete faith on that. So when she saw the 3,000 people filled in the seats, she was very happy, and I was happy for her too.
Yeah, the dance community in Cuba is like really strong, and you know, they talk to each other, and that's how the word is spread, I guess.
Yeah, but also I think the Cuban population also is really well educated in when it comes to arts. Because we don't have that many choices as you do here in the state, that you have the Netflix, you have the cable, you have this and that. Your choice is to go to a theater. So anybody will go to the theater in Cuba and to see a ballet or see a modern dance company. So that helped a lot too.
Yeah, Jan was very impressed. Actually, I love that because I was impressed also how Jan enjoyed these people on the street. How do you call that in English? The people who sells
vendors.
But the vendors on the street, they actually were talking. We knew some of them in our neighborhood, and that Jan enjoyed so much how they were singing or talking, but also telling us, "Oh, I know you're dancing." So all these people know, oh, there's a performance here. They are vendors, but at the same time, they talk to you about dance, they talk to you about many other things. So they, as Victor saying, I'm supporting that. It's like people in Cuba are really well connected to culture, art.
And it was dancers that they knew who were coming back that they hadn't seen. They hadn't seen Mariah and Victor perform in 9 years. Or no, it was more than that. At that time. It was more than 9 years. It was like 12 or 13 years.
13 years. We left Cuba in 2002, and then we performed in 2015. So
yeah. So it's 13 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you know, that was a big reunion.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
It was special.
Yeah. Besides going to see our families, as I said before, we used to go to see our families often in Cuba, but in the artistic side, I think it was rewarded. It was a great memory. You know, I have a memory actually from the last thing we had. I think they were lifting me somewhere, and when I look back there and see this bag, the last seat. Oh my God, it was very touchy for me, just because I know it was the first and last time after I left Cuba that I know that I'm going to be performing there. So it was good. It felt great.
It's so wonderful hearing you remember the journey and all the steps it took, because at the time you were going through it, of course, nothing was known. Everything was a dream and a desire, and you all were wanting to make it happen. And then to hear when you talk about it now, everything sort of seemed to happen exactly how it was supposed to. But it was an extremely challenging one for sure. And but not only were you marrying two dance companies together who were creating the work separately with their own ensembles, then you were coming to Chicago to try and put everything together. And happily, the Dance Center has one of the widest stages in Chicago. So you could actually stage the work simultaneously, like side by side. But then that added a whole nother layer, because not content with building this cultural collaboration, Jan, you also decided to make it a multimedia work, which is in tradition of Hedwig. So I'm hoping that Daniel from Bitter Jester, you could tell us all about that part of the journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, my name is Daniel. So let's see. So I went to Cuba with Hedwig Dances in 2012 on their first people-to-people tour, kind of just to document it. And we did end up creating a short film out of that and showed it around Chicago. But going to Cuba was definitely like creatively, it was a highlight, and as a life trip, it was a highlight. It was really an amazing experience. So I definitely knew I wanted to go back if there was an opportunity. And yeah, I think in 2014, I want to say, Jen, you reached out to me about starting to create video for your half of the production. So that was working with Jan, going out to the city and just filming different elements that she knew she wanted to incorporate. Nadia Oussenko also went out and filmed a couple of bits of video for us as well. So we really built that, we did our best to build as much as we could before the performance at Columbia. So we sort of created our timing based on the music, which came to us, I think it was all from Cuba. No, sorry, there's Cuban music and then there was American music. And we had to time everything out with a little bit of a guess as to how the Cuban side was going to do it and how we were going to do it. And we came to Columbia, to the Dance Center. And we had the good fortune of the Dance Center is it's state of the art in there. So putting the video together was definitely stressful. And again, this is not on the dance side. This is purely on the video side. But we had a really great team there to, whatever you needed, they could get it done. And there was a person dedicated to do it. So it was really cool to see that performance here. And then to go out the last night of the performance and spend time with the two dance companies together here in Chicago out at a big dinner was just really, really special. And then shortly after that, Jan said, we're going to go do this in Cuba. And would you like to come to Cuba with us? And I said, no, I don't want to go to Cuba with you. Why would I want to go back? And of course, I went back to Cuba. It was awesome. So we kind of started. I think we made some adjustments based from that performance in the Dance Center. Small things. Jan wanted to tweak elements of the choreography and then the timing of the video. But similar to them coming to Chicago, when we went to Cuba, we didn't know what was going to happen in Cuba. There was no idea what technology they were going to have, what we could do. And so, Jacob, if you want to go to my first photo, which is just a photo of this is my bag that I brought. I brought a suitcase with a tripod in it and some extra gear, and then a backpack with a video camera and a still photo camera and all my hard drives and my computer, knowing from my first trip that if you need everything, you have to bring everything with you, and it has to go in 2 suitcases because you are not going to be able to get anything else. And in fact, when I was in Miami, I actually had to pick some stuff up, and I could get it in Miami, and I'm glad I was able to. But in Cuba, you're on your own. So I packed everything in the bag, flew to Cuba on my own because the dance company had gone ahead of me. And perfect example of just like how things are different there. I get off the plane, which has been delayed by like 4 hours. I go through security very easy, and there's no Jan because I'm delayed by 4 hours, and she doesn't know I'm delayed by 4 hours because it's not like she can go online and look up when the plane gets there. So it was kind of like high school, 1995. I just parked myself on the corner and waited for my mom to show up and pick me up. And 6 hours after I was supposed to be originally picked up, Jan got me, and we basically went right to the theater. And I think we had lunch. We went right to the theater, and we immediately dove into the process that they had already started. And so I kind of had the dual role of, I also wanted to document the production, both in still photography and in video, but then also coordinating the projection. And so we'll go to the next slide. So that was really like the big issue. And so that's Susana in front of our screen in Havana. And you have the two sides, which you can kind of see there. And not to get too technical, but the screen at Columbia is a different size than the screen in Cuba. So all the video editing that we did in terms of melding all that media together had to be, and certainly not from scratch, but it had to be recreated for this new format, both how it projected onto the floor. So you go to the next slide, you can see that there wasn't a projector in Cuba that could project wide enough for the screen. So they had to get 2 projectors. So what happened is we're figuring this out as we're going. We're figuring this out. They're doing the dance, figuring out the choreography and all the timing. I'm trying to film, and also like, okay, how are we gonna get this thing projected? And so somebody gets on a phone and starts making calls. And I'm also running up and down from the booth because there's no like headset communication there. So someone yells down, "Oh, you need to come up here." So I'd run up there, and I run up, and there's, you can go to the next slide, and there's like a whole team of people who appeared seemingly out of nowhere from Cuba to like help make this thing happen, which was awesome. And I don't know any of their names. I have their business cards still, but they just showed up, and they were like, "We're the guys who have projectors in Cuba, and somebody called us, and we're going to help you guys." So they spent several hours every day aligning up everything. So if you go to the next slide, you can see that it's not Columbia College, definitely. It's very different. It's, make it work. But again, without their help, it would not have been able to happen. And so I was coordinating with them, with my editing software and their projection software, and really just trying to meld this together, because we'd never done it before. If you go to the next slide, I think it's just another view of the booth from, things are what they are in Cuba. But again, I think what made it special is that, like, literally, people just came out of nowhere to help. I don't know what urging went on behind the scenes, but they were all really, really great to work with. And actually, some of the photos and video that we captured in Cuba, another video person I know, again, just showed up and said, "Hey, I have a camera. You want to help me? I can help you film." And so just stuff like that happened, which was really neat. So go to the next slide. So I would be videotaping as much as I could, just the process, and trying to capture that. And then you can go to the next slide. And it was really neat when the projection kind of finally came together. All the little angles were figured out, and all the masking was figured out, and merging it with the lighting. It seemed kind of Herculean to start with, but then it happened. And it was, we would get there at 8 a.m. and leave at 8 p.m. at night, and maybe have like a little snack during the day. And it was just working 12-hour days. And in that way, it's not that different than making art anywhere, right? You're just like, a lot of people get together and have to work really hard and put their souls and their passion into it. The difference is that it's 2 languages, it's different accents, it's different ways of communicating, physically and technologically. So we can go to the next slide. And so I had this really adorable little rental room. It was basically like an Airbnb type thing through, I think, I want to say Mirai was Connection of Your Father's, I think. I think he dropped me off there. So it was kind of off the beaten path. So I would be working at 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And then what would happen is we'd find out that a transition didn't work, or some masking of the projection didn't work, or the music actually changed a little bit in between Chicago and Cuba. So some of the timing was different. So that I would go back to my room at 8 p.m. You can go to the next slide. And I would set up my computer and my hard drives. I'd download all the media from that day, which was the media that I was filming to document. And then I'd get on my edit system, and I would just be going through and making all the little tweaks. We made this whole thing in Photoshop with the guys at the projection, where we created like a mask, and I'd line everything up to the mask. And then I'd go back the next day, and 10 things would be right and 2 things would be wrong. And so I'd go back the next night and I'd fix everything and bring it back. So you can go to the next slide. This is just a shot of, so you can't, for people who don't know editing, won't mean a whole lot, but this is like the timeline that I was working in, and all those little cuts there you can kind of see. And all those layers are basically video layers, and then masks on top of them with masks on top of those. And those were all efforts to really get the projection perfectly lined up. So earlier you saw that, if you remember, you saw that shot of the boat on the horizon, and you could see where the sea was just slightly off. well, that's because you have 2 different projectors and all this different technology coming together. So just to make that line hit required very precise work, kind of at night, in coordination with the projection team. You can go to the next slide. And then, yeah, this was just every night downloading, hours of footage, and waiting for it to download while I was editing away. And then you can go to the next slide. And then we did do some interviews. This is Guido. He was with the company at the time. And it, I think this room was just like, I think we did a meeting in that room and then everyone left. And it was like, this is the time you're going to do the interview because everyone's really busy. And this is the room you have. And it's like a blank wall with nothing in it. So you just set up your light and go. And actually Jan's daughter speaks Spanish and she was with us on the trip. So she did the interviews. So without her, we would not have been able to do the interview. So I have to give a shout out to Sophia as well. Again, everyone was pitching in. And then if you go to the next slide, it's just, this is us with Susana interviewing her in their dance studio. And that was another kind of neat part about this trip was kind of when the show was over and it was super successful. It was neat to go to their studio and just see and go to that dance. You've said the name of it earlier, but the kind of National Dance Center, and see the photos on the wall of these classic Cuban performances and Cuban dancers. And so a lot of the stuff that I'd heard about, but hadn't necessarily seen, I was actually able to go see and experience. And that was really, really cool. And then at night, if I had a little bit of time, you can go to the next slide. I'd go out and do, that was when I got home. When I got home, there had been like a 3-foot snowstorm. So we went through this like beautiful experience, and it was really special to see 3,000 people come to that show and to document the whole thing. And it just felt like, I think it was a week, maybe 6 days. It felt a lot longer because it was definitely a lot of work for everybody. But seeing it come together is really neat. And then I came home and I got to shovel my car out from the snow. So that was how I got welcomed back. And then if you just go to the next picture, we don't have to show all these, but I'd like to go out at night and take pictures of the area around where I was staying. And Cuba just is this gorgeous country. I mean, even, there's a lot of construction happening, a lot of older buildings that are falling down. But there's kind of art always around. So I really enjoyed taking photos, and that's another special thing about visiting Cuba. It's just it is a different lifestyle, and like they were saying, that access to art is different. They don't have TV. So if you go to the next slide, I think it's the next one. No, it's the one after this. I would photograph people who were just like sitting outside their homes, just 2 people sitting and talking. If you go to the next slide, you can see them kind of in the corner there. If you go to the next slide, it's another example, just 2 people out together. So you saw a lot of that in Cuba, people out and about, really enjoying their lives together. And I think that's partly why so many people came to the show, because they love dance there, and it means a lot in that country. And of course, the dancers were well known there, and so it was a really, really phenomenal experience, and I'm very glad I was a part of it. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Daniel. That was wonderful. And it's a miracle any show actually comes together. But then when you hear all of the things that had to come together for this particular show, it's even more of a miracle. And what's the real miracle is that it not only came together, but it was an incredibly great work of art. So like it didn't just work, it worked as art. And we have huge debt, of course, to the dancers who helped create and live and breathe it and build it. So I'm hoping, Jesse and Victor and Marai, if you can talk a little bit about what it was like to be inside the dance, creating the work here, meshing it with DanzAbierta, performing here, performing in Havana. If you just want to share your personal experiences, that would be awesome.
Maybe.
Well, first of all, I think, for all of us, it was very exciting, especially because what it meant for us and what it meant for the company. I feel like we strongly believe, or I guess I strongly believe, that, Hedwig itself was always like a very innovative company. But this step that we took with this, starting these international collaborations, like really pushed the company even more, even more forward. with, like new projects and exciting projects. So this one especially, it was really touchy for us and really special to, go back and, perform there after so many years, and, going back to the community, I guess, to the Cuban community where we grew and when we were formed as professional dancers. But talking a little bit about the process, it was really fun, really fun. We started like from different sections. Definitely the sections that I enjoyed the most, not getting anything aside, just like talking a little bit more personal. it was the duet with Edson and with the sweater. I believe there are some pictures there from the process where we actually, where we were actually still at
movement.
No, we were still at Harbor Street, still rehearsing at Harbor Street. It was like really back in time, like the very beginnings of our process. That was really, really fun. How to get to work with the sweater, like how many things were involved in that and how many things we could do with that. That was actually only the sweater. It was not even like the rug yet. So that was the first step. But it was really fun. The other part that I really enjoyed was the trio of the winter section. That was really nice to, it was, I don't know, it was kind of like to getting into that other side of what we were always used to, like feeling that winter that we never actually felt in Cuba. It was that other side of the paper or something, that other side that we never really felt before, getting to wear all of those coats and how that affects us as individuals, as human beings, how that affects our bodies, our movement, our daily living,
Yeah, and that also, I remember I talked to Jan about the process. Anyway, I would like to comment as well, because I was divided between an artistic associate and dancer at the same time. So for me, it's not like it was difficult, but sometimes it was contradictory because I had to be in the dance, but at the same time, I was thinking also possibilities as I was dancing. So for me, and I love the process. One of the things that I love, it's, what I was doing was helping Jan with the process. So when I was dancing, I was trying to think about what else can we do with this section? What are the possibilities on that in here? Anyway, and so from my side, from the artistic associate perspective, I was very engaged with Jan from the very beginning. We become friends from the very beginning. So I was so amazed with the idea that she wanted to go to Cuba, that she wanted to know more about our culture, about our families, about our backgrounds. So for me, that was very important. But I felt even more, for me, that was even more important that that was important for her, that this was important for her. So because not everybody does that. Jan loved her dancers, her company. So for me, it was very touchy the way that she was feeling this as important. Yeah. So anyway, I love the way that we were together in Quebec, enjoying this journey of processing how we can see the results of Trade Winds Arts de Cambio. So there's so many memories that brings me. So when I see the result of the choreography, I was like, okay, I love this. The piece was great. But the most important for me was the journey. The journey is something that no one can take away from you, this journey. And as we all talk, as Danny was talking, for me, that was it was emotional because I was actually walking with his words toward the trip, toward this journey of the piece, and how we communicate with DanzAbierta, how we become friends in a way, it was a very important trip. And not just for the artistic part, but also to bring both community, to bring both countries together, to create a different world in the art culture. So, and from the dance perspective, from the dancing perspective, so I didn't feel so ready. I felt like I was more in the outside, but I was trying to call myself and say, hey, this is an opportunity. You're inside. Just enjoy this moment. Enjoy each moment. Just be, and that will be it. So.
Yeah, and DanzAbierta was like really welcoming, and they were really sweet, and the collaboration was really smooth because of that. They got really close with us, and so the merging or I guess the
it was I think it was a unique and really neat project, right? Just the fact that as Mariah, I was part of a lot of the trip to Cuba. And see the project growing from, okay, this week we're gonna, kind of like a Boy Scout, we're gonna see what company will fit to us. And then later we find out with DanzAbierta will be the proper one. All the stress to get through there, and then how we start doing the process here. Like for me, one of my favorite section, like Jesse say, is the winter and the fall. Those two sections, just for the emotional component that brought to us, because we coming from a country where it's December and it's 84, it doesn't matter. And when it's 83, people wearing sweaters, So just the fact that we start to experience that nostalgic of waking up with not having that sun on your window, and then you spend 8 hours of the day gray, and then you go from that gray to dark.
Yeah.
And that's it. That built a lot of that nostalgic, and then having the moment of working with another company that in this case, Mariah and I, we left Cuba back in 2002. So it was like, oh, this many years later, we're going to be working with people from the other side, but not just that, we're going to be performing. And the last theater that we performed before we came to the U.S., and our family finally is going to see us dancing again. So it was alive, it's a lot of feelings that it just get into the mix. Of course, you have those days of frustration. For me, one of the most frustrated days, it was when we first met with DanzAbierta actually at Links Hall, and we have to learn all what they did. And that was not day for them to learn what we did, and then we have to basically rush everything. And I was like, why are you telling me I have to learn this whole thing now in 3 days, and then when you guys are gonna suffer? So all the punishment was on us, and we're like, we take it, and then we did it, but it was a moment of frustration. Yeah. But we just came out through it. We're the host. Okay, let it be. But it was a really unique project, and it really is still, for me, sometimes you don't remember things until you see it. Yeah. And I was watching the videos, and honestly, right after that video, I feel like I have a lot of my dreams come true, right? And because that was January 2015, and in May 2015 was my last performance with Hedwig Dances. So it kind of like it was a trajectory where you fulfill those empty spaces, and it gave you to that moment. So.
Yeah, it was really, and also this choreography that we were talking about the season, but it was pretty much about the season of life. That was just like it was a reason just to talk about life, and not just about the season itself. So that's why all of these way of doing the spring, the fall, the winter, for us, for the winter and the fall is something that really touched us here as Americans. So we feel that, but how does that mean for the human part? What does that mean to you? Especially, well, for us, that we know both sides, that we have difference of the cultures we have. So all of this, it comes into the dance perspective, not just to talk about the season itself, like a picture, a narrative way of saying, hey, let's talk about the spring. The spring is blooming, but what does it mean for your life? You know, so all of that, it brings a lot to the piece. And then it blends with DanzAbierta and what they were bringing. So that's how we start connecting the dots. And how the piece came together.
So I would say that the biggest challenge was we had this whole call and response going at the beginning of the dance. They would do a section, we would do a section. It was back and forth for each season. And then there was the moment where we broke the line, and we had to figure out, and we had to figure out pretty much at the last minute, because that was done in Chicago right before the show went up. And it's like, okay, there's two different minds here about how we're going to do this. And it was like, okay, how does this come together? And yet it was a struggle. I remember walking into Roel's office and just saying, oh my God, Roel, I don't know if I'm going to make it through this week. But I will say this about it is that was one of the most important parts of the dance, was that moment of us coming together and really dancing together. It's like finally we broke through, and there was this moment of release in the work that I got to say, especially when we performed it in Havana, that was, I mean, you could feel it in the room. It was like visceral, you know, everyone just like watching that moment. It was very special.
You kind of know it's gonna, like, you know it's gonna happen. I think everyone knows it's gonna happen, but like when it's gonna happen and how it's gonna happen was like really unknown. And so, yeah, I think I agree. That energy was really neat that night of the performance.
And I know it was challenging just because, okay, sometimes when you dream your ideas, you don't know the consequences, but and how it needs to be done. But the first idea was pretty realistic in our conference table. So we decided, hey, this is pretty realistic. We are here and you are there. Something is dividing us. So why we don't use a line on stage that divides us? So because realistically we have to work here and they have to work there. So that was pretty honest work in a way of working. I would say there first like this, and then how we start, you know, bringing the work together, and then we have to break that line somehow. So we figured out how that was solved. You know.
Yeah, and the imagery worked really well because we had the turf, and then the next imagery was the water. So we had the land and the water, and the imagery of that just was, you know, really rich for us to work with ultimately. But we just had a very short time to pull that together.
Which is like one person across the line, and it's like when you go to other country, and nurture yourself with its culture, the culture, and then somebody else, you know, meets you there too. Okay, I wanted to. So that's why all this communication of going back and forth until we went together at the end, and it was the idea.
But let's don't forget one other struggle. That it was hard for everybody. A week before we get to Havana, we were supposed to perform in the Maya, and then the Maya get canceled us, and then we have to find another theater.
It was a different theater,
right?
Yeah.
So,
right, yeah. And there were lots of things that it just was very difficult communicating. So it's like there were times when, all right, is this going to happen?
Yeah, it was great. It was made for dance, actually. Always was made for dance, and having a better, I don't know in this moment, but it was having a better technical, how do you say the back part of it? Like anyway, in technical aspects, it was better. They actually renew it, but in the Teatro Nacional, even though it was bigger, they didn't have the same technical stuff. So that's why Daniel was explaining about, you know, the options, different options we have to find.
Okay.
I mean, we had a lot of support from our partners. Mariah, Victor, and Jesse's families. I mean, the dancers' family, Susana, Guido, Noel Bonilla for our Cuban partners, Roel and Lynx Hall, the Dance Center of Columbia College, National Performance Network, Joanna Pinsky and Ellen Kammerling from Art Encounter, our patrons who traveled with us, Geo Darder, Copper Bridge Foundation, our collaborators, Eme Alfonso, Claudio Pairot, Nadia Oussenko, and Erica Ricketts. The MacArthur Foundation gave us a $50,000 grant, which we could not have done this without that money. It was a lot of money, but it also went really fast. And then 2 pro bono attorneys from McDermott, Will and Emery, who helped us with getting our license to travel to Cuba and visas. And then, of course, the Dance Center of Columbia College, who co-presented us with Lynx Hall. So we had a lot of support.
Yeah.
Well, and I can tell you, being in the audience for the opening night at the Dance Center, I was very kindly, Jan set me center seat, front row, and I was sitting next to a lady who always sits in her seat. And at the very end, I just leapt to my feet to applaud. I just thought it was so outstanding. And the woman next to me had a walker, and she held her walker up above her head and shook it up in the air and turned to me and said, "That was just outstanding, wasn't it?" And I was like, "That really was." So that was like one of my happiest memories from that whole project was, of course, getting to see it. And then hearing from you guys, having 3,000 people on their feet in Havana, standing ovation too. It was just, anyway, I'm so thrilled for the tiny little part I had, but just that you made this work happen. We only have a couple more minutes left. So I know we've got some questions from the audience, which I want to make sure that we don't not get to. So Diksha, who's joined us, she said, did you just have to nerve-wrackingly trust that the community would show up in Havana? Was that what you were just doing, biting your nails and hoping it was going to happen?
Well, for me, I have some rudimentary Spanish. I can do greetings and ask for certain things, but don't always understand what comes back at me. So I felt I was like an immigrant in a way. In Cuba, I mean, I had to trust so much because I didn't understand what was happening, especially in the performance in Havana. And of course, things work differently. So, but it was such a rewarding experience in the end that was.
I was telling Jan actually, well, that don't worry, Jan. They don't want to show that there's a problem, and that it happened everywhere. In here too, you don't want to show that there's any problem. Make it possible, especially from where we are coming from. So I just enjoy it, just like I believe, and that things will happen.
Yeah,
you have to be positive.
Yeah.
So that was all.
You got 2 chats. You got I think when we were there, I think it was on Saturday or Monday. Guido and Susana, they were on national TV.
Yeah.
And they talk about the performance. So there you go. You
That's
have
it.
11, 12 million people listening. Something's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one, I think there was a radio station, one of the radio stations, some interview.
That's true.
And then you have at least 10 million of those, because there were the 2 official, the TV channel and the radio station that people listen to the most. And then word of mouth, and you have to trust.
Right. And I went to the U.S. Embassy to invite them personally. I remember standing in line waiting to make my give my invitation.
I don't know about that, Jan. Yes, true.
And we have another question from Jitika. She asks, do you think the readiness to help random strangers is more of a characteristic of Cuban culture or something that happens just the same in America as well, that readiness to help random strangers?
I think it's some of the Cuban nature. We just like to support people, and then we don't see who is it. We see you that you struggle, and then we want to help. Even if you don't, we will try to help you anyway. So, yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, I think having spent a lot, both in 2012 and 2015, just walking around at night after kind of the official day ended, yeah, there's also just like a really deep interest in what are you doing here? Let's talk. And I speak very minimal Spanish, and a lot of people that speak almost little or no English, but you'd still like just get into a conversation with somebody for 5 or 10 minutes because they're just really interested in what you're doing, and you know they have different access to the world than we do, and I think that's also part of it. And then I think the arts community there. I mean, the arts community everywhere. I think people want to help each other. I can't really speak to it, but I would guess that in America there's maybe a little bit more. What am I going to get paid? And in Cuba, maybe there's a little less of that. I don't know. I can't speak to it, but I'm going to guess that's the case. You know, so when I'm putting a project together and I'm putting my budget together, it's like you kind of know what you're going to have to pay everybody, and people aren't going to show up if you don't pay people, unless you really have a good friend with somebody, right, who's going to come and help you. And I got the sense that, you know, partly because of the deep relationships that Mariah and Victor and Jesse have, like that probably helped. And Susana's a well-known choreographer there, so that probably helped as well. But yeah, to just show like seeing the first guy show up to do projection, and then there was a problem, and then the next guy showed up, and then like there's 4 guys in there. That was cool to see. I mean, it was really like a big surprise. We couldn't have gotten it done without him. And yeah, I think that's a little bit of the nature of being in Cuba. So
there's another question from the audience, which is, looking back, is there anything you would have done differently in the process of creating the work with DanzAbierta?
Well, I think that
being able
I would like to have had more time.
More time.
I mean, I would really like to have arranged more time prior to the premiere.
mm-hmm.
Because we really did need more time to work together. We had time along the way, but I'm talking about the final stage of the project. I wish that we had worked out a way to have another couple weeks together to really work together. I think that would have really been helpful and have made it less stressful.
Yeah, and we would have loved that, this project in general would have gone further, like to other places, maybe too, so other people were able to see it also.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was the initial dream, that we would perform in well, we did perform in 2 places, but yeah, the initial dream was to do more, but
you have to see first,
right?
The first dream, and then maybe.
Right.
Well, that's actually a perfect segue, although I'm very sad to draw this wonderful conversation to a close. I hope the audience enjoyed it as much as I did. I thought it was awesome. Thank you all for sharing your memories and ideas. But what's beautiful is, thanks to the documentation, everyone can actually see the performance in Havana, and that in the YouTube information, you'll find the link and the password. And it's going to remain live until January 24th at 11:59 p.m. So please take a look and go to Havana with Hedwig Dances and get to see how gorgeous this and poignant and touching and wonderful this work is. Thank you so much, everyone. And Jan, is there any last words you'd like to share?
I just want to thank everyone participating today. You, Roel, Daniel, Jesse, Victor, Mariah, Jacob Snodgrass for our technical production, Julie Volkman for producing, and Ashley Aguilar, our intern, and everyone who came today. Thank you very much. And yeah, it was a wonderful conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks to Jan for the opportunity and for this big idea, I guess.